I am. Welcome to. Okay, it is 4:03 on Wednesday, July 19th. It's the Independent Ethics Review Board. And I would like to call this meeting to order. Okay. Next. Okay. This meeting is a public meeting, a public hearing. I do not see anybody here who wishes to make a public comment. If anyone does. And no one said that. Okay, speak now. All right, nobody has indicated that they wish to make a public comment. We'll now go on. Number 3, correct?
Yes.
Is then everybody who needs the minutes and we all had a chance to review them from our last 2 sessions?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any changes anyone wishes to make? Revisions, corrections? Okay, can I get a motion that we accept those minutes?
Make a motion.
Steve,
Second.
Ted Lieb seconds. Okay, it passed.
Now you need to vote.
All in favor?
Oh, sorry, can we vote on that?
All
All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous, yes.
Raquel, did we get her vote?
Raquel?
Yes.
Okay, we get a thumbs up from Raquel. She says yes, so we still have unanimous decision. To accept them, I will now pass this off to Meredith to discuss these recent articles of interest, right?
Discuss or you can discuss.
Okay. I have that change.
Okay, so let's start off with the former Austin Airport CEO. Any discussion, comments, questions?
I think meeting alone and not really disclosing things there was definitely a conflict on his part or their part.
I mean, what we're talking about here is the approval of invoices, correct?
Yes,
Oh, I got
from a
their
previous from a previous employer.
So she just put her signature on invoices. My question was, the bid process. Was she involved in the bid process?
How long ago had she been employed? Because, right, our policy does have a window for prior employment.
The windows for future employment.
Okay.
Oh, conflict of interest, I'm sorry, it is substantial. It's, yeah.
24 months back or something like that. Right? So if she had worked for them 10 years ago, it doesn't apply. Our policy doesn't apply.
12-month period.
12, okay.
Anyway, was she involved in the approval process? In the bid process? Was she one of the approvals? Did she approve the bid? I mean, putting your signature on a couple checks, which is, I guess, one of her jobs. I don't see where it's breaking any type of ethical.
But it does say that in a year prior, she did get money from a consulting firm.
No. I for one don't see anything there. Warren, ethics, I'm not sure how anybody else knows.
And keeping in mind that their code is different than ours. So even if Austin found a violation, you may not under our code, or you may find a violation when Austin did not.
I think there would also be an understanding too of who else is doing approval processes in this. If she's the sole one, I think you've got a different issue
Yeah.
than if she's one of many, then it's passing through other lenses. And so you've got your internal controls and separation of controls, which is really what's at issue here for me on the ethics.
They're not telling the whole story here.
That's right.
I mean, from start to end, they're not telling the whole story.
In our city, our airport director would not be approving 500,000 purchases, right? They're up to 50.
Up to 50, yes, anything over 49,999 and 99 cents goes to city council for approval.
Okay.
So you said there's not all the information here. What additional information would be helpful for this board if you were to make a determination on these facts?
Again, it says she participated in the approval process. To your point, so there apparently was a process, maybe numerous people were approving these checks.
So you'd like to know the process and who was involved?
Yeah, I'd like to know from the bid stage, I mean, these checks were for work done for the airport.
Had that contractor done previous work for it, maybe?
It said they have a
Right.
contract prior.
Right, like,
And she was an employee, did she benefit personally from that? Or was she just doing her job?
right,
And if it was a contractor that had already been awarded, like to Steve's point around the approval or the bidding process, if they've already been an approved contractor and all you're doing is saying, yes, the time allotted or it's in compliance with the contract, how is that really a violation of that?
Yeah,
Everything's been approved, she's just saying, hey,
in Sugar Land, if city council says, yeah, you can spend $500,000. Would police chief, the fire chief, the airport director at any point sign the invoice to release the money?
Not exactly. So in Sugar Land, anything over $50,000 goes to the state law purchasing requirements where there's multiple bids. You have to have all your conflict of interest statements, your 1295s, and it goes to our purchasing department. And so the purchasing department goes through and they have set up a panel that will determine which is the best bidder, because you'll get multiple bidders, whether it's a RFP or an RFP, request for proposals or request for bids. Once they determine which is the most responsive or the best value for the city, then a recommendation is made to the city council. And the department head, whether it be the airport or the police department, will go and make a presentation to city council. So this is the project. We went out and we had this many bids. We provided this much notice. We recommend approval of this. Council then approves it. Now, depending on what the actual work is, if it's like a bill as you work kind of thing, then the department head will say, yes, this work was performed, okay to pay the bill, and it goes back to accounting.
So again, based on this, we don't know.
So that's additional information you
It
would.
could have been a situation like that where, yeah, I'm saying it was done. Go ahead and send $500,000.
too many gaps,
Pardon?
too many gaps.
Yes.
So to really make an ethical decision whether this, she violated any type of, if she was involved in the bid process, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say that she was involved in the bid process, it's just,
Or
you know, signing checks. And I guess one thing, I guess she didn't inform her employer. Was that one of the reasons she didn't inform her employer that she was part, but they knew about it? It was on her resume. I mean, they all knew that she worked for this company prior to. So I have a hard time.
again, did she benefit financially from it? Because I think then our code said they have to have at least 10% owner interest in a.
a certain dollar amount or
Yeah.
a percentage.
So,
Yes, conflicts of interest and state law. And you must disclose if you make 2,500 or more, or is 10% or more of your previous year's gross income.
right, so,
So if this were to come into as a complaint that an employee in the city had done this behavior, kind of the steps we're walking through now is if this was a hearing, what documents and what information would you need? What evidence would you need? So right now I have notes that you would want to know what the bid process is. Did they know if she had previous employment because it's on her resume? Was it a stamp because the work was completed? Or did she actually participate in the approval process? Who else was involved? And what internal controls?
And she signed a conflict of interest form already, and we knew she was gonna have to do this, and she told us, hey, I used to work for them, but I'm letting you know now, I used to work for them. I had nothing to do with what city council said to spend. I'm gonna have to sign the invoice to pay, so they can get paid at the end.
maybe she worked for them, so she knew they were the best people, you know, she had inside information. She just knew that she might have been acting out of good faith on that, so.
So it says she was the CEO.
Of the airport,
of the
yes.
airport. So Global Select owns our airport. As
The
private,
city
as a
owns-
city owns Global Select, right?
Global Select is the branding name that we gave the FBO or fixed base operator, because under airport law, you can have a company come in and bid, and they can come in and do like a long-term lease or an agreement with the city to run the airport. And so a lot of commercial entities like to use an FBO rather than a city airport. So we said, okay, we're gonna call our city employees Global Select, and they said, this is fantastic, we love your airport. So being a CEO is equivalent to being a director, it just depends on how the setup is, but she was a city employee.
Right.
So the other question, I guess, is did she recuse herself during the bid process? But she should have recused herself.
Mhm.
If she was involved in the bid process, I'm assuming her position, she must have been.
Anything else? All right. This is a fun one. This might be one of these that
Yeah,
I made.
yeah.
You want to introduce it? What was your article?
Okay, I don't have the top part of it, but, well, you guys could read, but it was a Oregon, Secretary of State. Was consulting in the cannabis business. That they, the Secretary of State has control over financing or oversight in their financing.
So her office had the oversight of
Right.
issuing the permits and regulating it. And she took a contract consulting with the company on getting their licenses through her office.
She must have been
That's
smoking
a
weed at the
definite-
time.
Middleton.
Yes.
Oh,
This whole thing is crazy. In response to the criticism, to put it bluntly, my Secretary of State salary is not enough to make ends meet.
right.
That's right. But, you know,
Oh, in that case, it's perfectly fine. We don't pay you
Right, yeah.
enough. You can go break the law.
Justify that.
Well, if this happened in our city, I believe it would be above the class C misdemeanor.
Okay, let's take that part off the
So
table.
we wouldn't be dealing with it.
Um, But if it was a department head that was doing consulting, it's a little bit of a different flavor than the airport case.
Yeah.
Right.
But if they're doing that, it's an area of the regulating. And maybe like food inspection is helping a business open up a restaurant and they're getting paid for that.
Yeah,
That's a good.
And so what type of violations, if the food inspector had been an elected official, would you find, and what information would you need to be provided to be able to hear that case?
What portion of their interest in that company to make sure it hits the dollar values that we have within our code.
Okay.
I mean, that's directly using your position to get a job. I mean, that's
Right.
Yep.
So
no,
he was receiving
no question
$10,000 a
about
month.
that.
she's now on ethical value,
Yeah.
section 272. She's now on conflict of interest, 277.
Yep.
Great article. This is easy.
Violating state law. Yeah.
Wish they were all this.
Yes. But I don't know that there would be a whole lot that we would have to ask for as, you know, for an investigation, because
No,
it's pretty clear
yeah,
from the get-go that it's against the points that Steve mentioned, you know, the specific articles within our.
So we like USA Today's reporting skills better
Mhm.
than KVU's.
Yes.
Raquel, do you have anything to add?
No, I agree with everything that's being said.
You just put a plate of Doritos and sliders in front of her. If it's all gone in 5 minutes, you know she's guilty.
yeah,
This is just bad decisions all around.
Yeah.
In Oregon, that's just. Okay,
Anything else on that article? All right, Mr. Chair, do you want to go to the next item?
okay, now we are going to. Number 5, workshop, the review and discussion on the ethics hearing procedure.
Okay, so this is kind of an after action topic based on the hearing that you just had. I want to make sure, be extremely clear before we start, that we are not going to discuss the facts of the hearing or the outcome of the hearing. I am conflicted out. I can't discuss those with you, and you have already made your decision, and the case is closed. So the goal of this workshop is to say, okay, best practices, where can improvement be made? What information can staff gather, and kind of how can we make this easier for you next time? It's our first time. We knew that there would be stumbling blocks. So having watched on YouTube, some of the suggestions that I would make is to provide you all a definition of what legally sufficient means, and kind of an idea of of definitions of what evidence may be. And that's kind of why we're going through the articles the way we were. What information do you need? So that I can come up with a checklist for you as you go through the process and say, okay, this is the complaint. I need the bid documents. I need this, so that you have a better framework as opposed to us going, here you go. Good luck with that. So that's the goal of this. But we are not going to get into the facts of the case, and we're not going to get into the outcome of the case. So now it's a free for all. I'm open to whatever improvements you would like in the process, because there definitely needs to be process, and needs to have more of a layout, opening statements, closing statements. And we need to have an attorney in the room who can really take control, more of a judge sort of situation.
It looked like we were a bunch of rookies,
You were,
so we were
yes.
a bunch of rookies. One suggestion I would make is splitting the meetings in two is horrible. Horrible for the real estate lady. I mean, her career is, affected by this, and to finish the meeting at a certain time because we're out of time, or somebody's got an appointment, is to me unacceptable. If we're going to do a ethics hearing, we do an ethics hearing, finish it off.
Yeah, I think we had no clue as to how long that process was gonna take, like, okay, so now we get 5 hours for it, it may, or pick some number.
We can't pick any hours, we can't pick any time, fortunately. I
Yeah,
mean, I've been.
can you have meetings that do that? Just go on and on, like city council does that.
So it is actually rare to have it in time on an agenda. We were surprised by that. So that's an extremely good point. So in the future, you'd prefer to have making minutes correct. So you'd have one meeting where you determine whether or not it meets the criteria, and then you'd have the second meeting, which is the actual hearing.
Correct.
Okay, how would you feel about us saying, okay, we're gonna set the meetings up at the same time? So we're gonna say, this is the first meeting, whether or not it's sufficient. If the board determines it's sufficient, in 5 days, the hearing will occur, so that everybody knows at that point in time when the next meeting is going to be, so that you can plan accordingly. Would that be something y'all would be open to, or it's gonna be 10 days, so that the person who's been accused has a better idea of a calendar? It is how long the process will take, and then that you show up and you just keep going.
As long as the accused has sufficient time to
Yes.
make her case. I mean, is 5 days enough? Is 10 days enough?
Okay.
That's,
I mean, what do you think works better?
This is your board. I think.
I guess, like as an expert, like in your experience.
Well, I think that, to your point, that there is some need for a definitive timeline for the person who's been accused, because this person does have a business, they need to go on. And I think personally, if someone had accused me of that, I would want an outcome pretty quickly, just so I can move on and not have it hang as a cloud over my head. There is the time needed to defend yourself. So if you want documents, how fast can those documents be received? And so I'm happy to go back and research that. I thought we had a time period between the two meetings. But I can certainly look, but I would recommend we try to shorten it maybe to 2 weeks, just so that we can have the outcome.
One case per
I
meeting
think 10 days is good.
for us
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, good, sorry.
Well, as far as one case per meeting,
So,
we had deadlines. So the code says within
Yeah.
X number of days of hearing it, you will act on that. And so rather than call you back for 3 days a week, we tried to stack it. I realize that's a lot. It's overwhelming. Hopefully that we will not have that situation again.
amen. But it was just
one
brutal
thing,
to try and go in, discuss one thing, have everyone speak on it.
And
render a
because they were
decision,
interrelated.
and then go back, do that entire process over the same day.
The one thing that, and of course, they said you can't control the public comment, they can say what they want, but there was so much said that, you know, it wasn't specific to what the complaint was, and they were actually bringing up stuff that about possibly filing another ethics complaint, so that was information being spewed that probably shouldn't have even come out if there wasn't even a.
And one of them called us KK, something like the KKK.
You can't control.
No, it was-
But
all the witnesses should be let ahead of time, like, these are the jury. They didn't choose to prosecute you, they're being given the evidence to review.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like. it was-
Attacking them
It
personally,
was like, isn't there like Robert rules of order, like just, yeah, some of the things that were said and. Like someone to be, like you say, the judge or someone that knows the process and say. That's, stick to this case. Yeah, I mean, I felt like it was out of control.
and then we were
It
being
was.
judged and we were being vilified.
I mean,
We're not we didn't show up in this room because we wanted to.
Okay, so an introductory statement is public comments must be limited to the hearing today. If you get off, the moderator or the chair will shut you down. You will not have an opportunity to continue. You must use respect. And all comments must pertain to the case and not be personal attacks to
And when,
anybody on this board who is serving as the jury today.
and when that happens, whoever's in charge, can they stop them?
The attorney should have, yes. I think that there was some concern that she was walking into a new room and she didn't want to overstep her bounds. So there will definitely be a script for next time that will say exactly what can and cannot be said.
And then somebody was sitting in back of me, making comments, calling,
Yeah.
well, the mayor was up there speaking, saying, you're a felon, you should be arrested. Literally, they're sitting in back of me, and they might be in the building right now. Making completely inappropriate stuff, comments while we were speaking.
Yeah, I felt like it was got out of control at times. too.
Let
This
me look
isn't
into-
TikTok, this isn't YouTube.
Let me look into seeing if I can find a retired judge to possibly sit there and be the guide and the legal advisor to the board, because they're gonna have a much better concept of, the presence in the room and how to control the crowd, how to shut
Like,
things
I really
down.
shushed that
I
person
will-
twice.
We'll try to get you in a larger room because this is not very comforting.
But we were in the bigger room.
But were you,
Yeah.
it's hard to tell on you,
Yeah.
where y'all were sitting.
I mean, I know there's a certain, order you go on in and you have all this public comment. If we could have gone in the room and discussed, once we got the information we needed and discussed it, if that sat down and talked with her, we would have came to the same decision and all that mess would have been cut out. I mean, I think all of us, once we talked about it together, were pretty much,
Well, we got the counsel we needed from the attorney
yeah.
around it and then,
The public comment had nothing to do with anything that we decided or would. So,
And maybe even just I know you do the annual training, but anyone that's being accused, there was just things that, yeah, you didn't, make sure you follow the rules about if you want to present slot, like kind of like a training, like if this ever happens to you, you have to follow these rules and not then put it back on the ethics board, or whatever. It's just the whole process, was not being regulated.
And it got pretty contentious between us and Ms. Patel.
And then, because,
Points where she's attacking us, so you did that.
And the slides were given they have to be, they, in the middle of the hearing, they're explaining why the slides can't be shown because they have to be.
She was emailed on that. She did try to submit them. So that was explained to her that for security of her IT system, everything
Right.
must be submitted in advance so that we can run through it
And that's the
clean
point
it.
where if that happened, then someone should cut her off. I mean, it's a waste of everyone's time and it just adds to the rumor, of like, it's out of control.
is it possible to, in the comments for the person who's defending their reputation or to anybody we're talking to keep it a little bit confined? Because I felt like some of the comments got way out of line with what we needed to hear to make a decision. And so is there a way to keep it within those confines as opposed to just letting them say whatever they want to say about the accusation?
I think that's where a judge would come in.
Yes.
Because a lot of discussions were going off to the Imperial Development
Right.
Project. We're not here to discuss it.
That's exactly.
So, yeah, that's maybe somebody that we have in the room that's, well, let's keep it.
So keep testimony relevant.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's
That's
the big.
much better way to say that.
Yes.
And I think
Okay.
that's a lesson, I think that's a lesson for all of us too. So, some of the conversation, discussion and comments about Imperial came up, I think, because we had questions about it as well, right? So it was more like by us asking certain questions that motivated public comment to be steered towards the Imperial District. And so, I felt that just we needed to be, I guess, better prepared. Because it didn't come until like the very end where I think it all began to come together, at least for me, about like what was within scope, what's out of scope, how should we really be viewing this appropriately. So I think the up to 10 days of a hearing being scheduled, once it's been found that an investigation is what we will pursue, I think within those 10 days, there should be some kind of briefing or something to prepare the board for that hearing.
Good call.
That's a good.
That's a great idea.
Mhm.
Well, in terms of the evidence they want to, like, she couldn't get stuff shown because it wasn't emailed. Is it worth
Right.
saying all evidence has to be submitted electronically within has to be received 48 hours before a hearing, 24 hours before a hearing, you avoid I didn't know I couldn't get this. You don't have the evidence in at least the day before your hearing. If it's electronic, then
Okay, so.
like she can walk in and hand out stuff. Handouts.
So in the hearing procedures, we would say, this is the first hearing. It's a cause, no cause, kind of like an arraignment. Should we move on? And then we say, okay, in the next 10 days, this is the documents will be gathered. All documents must be submitted to the city secretary by 5 p.m. the day before the hearing to be loaded up. Will not be shared with either party. And it'll be ready to go. And so there's a deadline, like when you have a court, you have to file all your stuff with the court by a certain deadline to be able to introduce.
And that way, less delays, less confusion.
Because the public comment is really what drug everything out. And like I say, there wasn't a comment made that was pertinent to her post on Facebook. Not one, every bit of it was about, oh, well, this is a hit job because of this happened. And I mean,
Let's get back more to the proceedings. We're not gonna
Right.
rehash it.
And
yeah,
It wasn't relevant test.
Right.
That relevant test.
I know you want to get back into it, but I can't.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it possible, how's everybody feel about, I mean, she said that she submitted things that we didn't receive. How about, are we given enough time to review evidence
Okay,
that she submits
okay, so
or the person submits?
So when a complaint comes in, the code says that the board will sit down and have basically a cause, no cause type situation. In this particular case, when the accused was provided a copy, they provided a response. That the person was explained that response cannot be provided to the board because the code says a response cannot be received until after they make a determination. And so if you want to hold somebody accountable for possibly not following the code, you need to follow the code. So I can't say, well, okay, the board's going to determine whether or not somebody violated the code, but we're going to go ahead and violate the code to get the information in the order they want. So it may be an ordinance change that we bring forward to city council that if you want somebody to be able to submit that ahead of time, they can. But really the purpose of that first hearing is to determine, is the person subject to the code? Is the accusation within the time period? If the allegation, if true, is it regulated by the code? Is it signed and sworn? So the facts really aren't going to come into play at that first meeting. And so getting that information you can't consider it anyway, because the way the code is set up, that is the checklist. And so it's hard to explain. We explained multiple times, but really my goal of this agenda item today is to come up with an extremely comprehensive list. We've already got a draft form where we've made it so that if you want to file a complaint, this is the name of the person. Next box, this is the position they hold. Next box, section of the code violated. Next box, summary of what happened. When did it happen? Print it and get it notarized, so that part can already be done. So there is no surprises. Well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. We're trying to get the form so that it's laid out exactly how that needs to be done. So this item is more of a guide that can be posted on the internet as well. Next step format says, okay, if you are accused, this is what to expect. If you are accused, this is the format the board is going to follow. I don't know if it'd be helpful for you all. There's other cities that have ethics boards. Most of their hearings are 5, 6, 7, 8 hours long. Would it be helpful for you if I were to pull snippets of those for you to see kind of how the hearing process moves forward in these larger cities? Or is that not going to be good? Because I could do that, but you don't want to sit here for 8 hours.
Yeah, but I think
But
the
perhaps.
more
that's sort of
information we
thing.
have to function, and I said this after the hearing, I'll repeat it. This was the first time this document was tested ever. And I think we did a fantastic job for being complete rookies.
And non-lawyers.
Right, of taking what the document was crafted to do within the confines of the document as it is, and having no experience. I don't think it could have gone much better.
It was an extreme case considering who the parties were and the accusation. So you really got the worst possible case as your first case, based on the personalities. You had 2 strong personalities in the room. And so trying to rein either one of them in would be a challenge.
It was a bumpy road, but we got to the destination.
So the next, if you have another one, it will never be that bad because you've already lived through one.
Could be worse.
I feel
So
go there.
you just use the phrase in the room. Second case of that day. The complaining accuser. I had left the room already. So when the first case was done, everybody celebrated, rah, rah, and left. And then we're sitting there
And there's nobody.
to do case number 2, and the complainant's not even there.
That's weird. I mean, I left the room too.
Right, but she literally like, woohoo, my buddy was acquitted, I'm out of here. Like, why are we wasting our time?
Well, because at that
Or
point,
do we just say, look, it was filed properly?
at that point, you're not receiving evidence from them anyway. So you could have done that in a meeting like this where you don't have audience sitting there because you're not receiving testimony. And that was one of the questions we had as far as public comment. How do we put that on the agenda? Because you can't receive public comment on that item because you can't use that. It's a checkbox item. And so that was an interesting discussion as to whether the law requires this board to have the public comment, or if you could have it as part of the testimony in the hearing to limit that on there. But as far as the person leaving the room, I don't really think that should make a difference because you don't need their testimony anyway. It might actually make it easier for you to have a more open conversation without that person sitting behind you.
It definitely can sway
Yeah,
the group, like, you don't think it's important enough for you to be in here to hear what we were discussing on something you complained about.
Yes, but that's not what that.
Oh,
that portion
absolutely.
is. That
Yeah.
portion is a check the box arraignment. Are you subject to the code? Is the,
Yeah.
if true, would it be something regulated by the code? And so you do have to do that due process.
So I'm off the wall suggestion.
Yes, please, I'll take it.
Yeah, we do these review boards once a quarter. Can we maybe once a year do a workshop, an actual workshop where maybe city staff comes in and we try a fake case.
Okay, so you want to mock trace?
Yeah, just a mock, so we know the steps and procedures, because we were tripping all over each other.
Would you
And
mind
also-
if I change that to twice a year?
Huh?
So every other meeting you have one, and then we have a meeting in the middle to fix it, and then we try again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Along with that, I feel like just some understanding or a training on Robert's Rule of Order. So just you know, all of us to be on the same page procedurally of how to run these kind of meetings.
And you were not, we had the outside counsel on one case because it involved your boss, right?
No,
No,
you're
we
gonna
need-
have
we
the
need
outside
time, yeah.
counsel on every single case. Because I am the legal advisor for all boards, whether I'm the one in the room or one of my staff members, my office is disqualified.
So you'll never be in
I can-
deliberation with us.
No, but I can train somebody. Well,
Okay.
you can train somebody. I could be in the room as you do the mock trials. To have somebody
Right.
who's ready to go. The first person I tried to hire was out of town and he had a big case somewhere else. He's actually a judge in Houston. And so that was, then Robin was my second choice. No offense to Robin. But I really want to have one person who's consistent, but it's also got to be a law firm that has no business with the city whatsoever. I don't want them to have a conflict because they have an agenda item or something related to that.
We're gonna do 2 a year, maybe one is the primary person you'd go to, and our second mock is with the backup, so that they both get an opportunity to train with us, we train with them.
Yeah, I mean, we meet 4 times a year. I think we can all afford to meet 6 times a year, but nothing on YouTube that's allowed. But just coming in here and practicing basically, what we can go through.
If we're not making any
Absolutely.
decisions, we're just rehearsing.
Absolutely, and I can sit in those practice ones and I can make revisions to the code as it needs to be in real time so that you can have it.
Do you think it would make sense to have one of those with the primary outside counsel and then one with the secondary, or do we try and practice with whoever's gonna be there? Like, do we practice twice with the primary? Or do we practice?
Well, I'm gonna have the problem I have is that these come up unexpected.
Mhm.
And so I then have 10 days to find an attorney who's available right away. And so I have a list of people who are generally available, but depending on their court dockets, it's harder for me to find
Yeah,
somebody.
you should make it down to 3 or 4, number 3 or 4.
You can sit on it. I mean, we
Yeah,
don't have
that's-
an actual.
we don't need to
Yeah.
pay the money to bring in.
So for the
outside.
practice ones, but
Yeah.
I would like somebody who's gonna have the same, oh, actually, you know what, if we YouTube them, that attorney we hire can watch it.
Yeah.
And so they can see your procedures, that might work.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do have it in the budget if we want to have that person sit there. Just because they will provide insight that I can't give you because I'm not a judge.
Yeah, and it was a rocky road, but we still did what we were supposed to do, and I still think all the decisions we made, the questions we asked. I'm not an attorney, but I worked with what you did.
Did you stay at Motel 6?
Yeah. And having covered hundreds of court cases. Generally, if neither party is happy with the outcome, but they're both satisfied, that means the correct decision was made. It's as simple as, I sue you for $100, you don't want to pay anything, I want $100, the judge says, give him 50. You're not happy, I'm not happy, but the decision was fair.
And see, my viewpoint on that, as long as you get due process and you follow the rules to get to the outcome, then the outcome is just.
Yes.
But if you don't follow the rules and procedures, the outcome is not just. Whether someone's happy or not, it's all about, for me, it's all about the process. So
Mhm.
right now I have 11 items on my to-do list on revisions. What else do you have?
This may not apply to the meetings, but I hope what came out of this meeting is the city adopting some sort of social media policy. Because it doesn't
Okay.
seem like the city has any type of social media.
We do, we just need to train boards and commissions on it. We trained city council on it, but we did not train farther down. So that's important, social media training for all boards.
For all boards. That may not have been a situation of maybe P and Z was training.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
social-
When we tried to get the appearance of impropriety introduced.
Okay, we're not gonna get down to the facts. We're on process and procedure. We're
I'd
not
love
gonna
for us to
relitigate.
re-recommend that.
Okay, well,
We,
your last round of revisions was to have a 5-year review. The
okay,
5-year review got postponed because we didn't want to do a review right in the middle of trying to do a hearing. And you have to double up on your meetings and try to figure out what's going on when, and make it look like somebody's getting a favor and someone's not getting a favor. So that is something that we will be kicking off soon. My recommendation will be that it's this board who makes those, that review, because you are the ones that live it, which is why I'm gonna make you, I'm not gonna let you off the hook just yet. But there is the possibility the council will appoint a citizen task force and have somebody on the outside look in. I don't know how that's gonna play out, but my recommendation will be to have you all do it, since you are the ones that are trained, you are the ones that have lived it and done an application in real life and on news articles. So you will have an opportunity coming up to make suggested revisions. So keep that on your radar. Those meet more frequently just because it's such a fast turnaround. We'll give you the information, read it, come back, we discuss it for an hour, you make suggestions, we do the research, we give you a new draft. And hopefully it won't take a year and a half like the last one did.
I think anyone who comes on to the board should definitely be advised that if you get a case, you may find yourself targeted of some comments that are upsetting.
But it shouldn't be that way.
Right. Yeah, but I would have loved to know. It wouldn't have changed me getting on the board or not. But just hey, you know, there's a potential that if you end up doing something, someone might say something to hurt your feelings. Instead of trying to stop it, but
Has city council or any other board or entities, like, would they say, oh, based on what happened, request a review too of the procedures or?
No.
That wouldn't come up at the meeting.
No.
So there had been some concern, I think, about the use of phone technology, video technology as the hearing was occurring. I don't think that there is anything that would allow us to limit or manage that, but if there is, I think that's something worth exploring.
Why is that legal, that they're allowed to bring in cell phones to tape us? I mean, you're in a hearing, I mean, are you allowed to do that in a court of law or?
Yeah, it's an open meeting, so you're subject to the Open Meetings Act, and as long as they're not disrupting the meeting, there's Attorney General opinions. I think there's even a few cases out there that says that you can record that. And as far as recordings in general, as long as one party to the conversation knows it's being recorded under Texas and federal law, it's allowed.
It's recorded and played anyway.
This is true. I'm recording you right now.
But it's intimidating when you have 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 people.
Yeah, it was more of
and that might be the
form of
intent of.
intimidation.
Well, and that may be for next time, just a location change, maybe putting you in the council chamber so there is a distance between you and the audience and there's nobody sitting behind you. Might make it a better situation. So you do have that distance. The person has to come to the podium to talk. And you don't have the audience participation because there's no microphones. And then whoever's the bailiff or the marshal or the judge can say, one at a time, please, your time is up, have a seat. And maybe that would help with order as well by putting you in a more formal setting.
Oh, good idea.
It would.
Can you tell people who come in, you're not given the floor to speak or something, you're just spend, you make comments, you'll be asked to leave?
Yes.
Okay.
We can have the bailiff or the magistrate. So my goal on this is, like I said, is to go through the procedures and put them on the internet. So if you are accused, expect this to happen. You know, and this is the board's procedure. So the board will have an intro at the beginning regarding what comments can be made, must be a script. Actually, you want me to go over my 15 points real quick? Yeah. And that way you can add anything I've missed. So first off, Steve mentioned that you don't want to split the meetings. You don't want a time limit. So we want to have a hearing start to finish. The time between should be about 10 days if we can get all the information together and it works with everyone's schedules. We want to limit the public comment to the case, no personal attacks. Needs to be an introductory statement regarding what comments can be used, what can be made, no personal attacks, and that there'll be a script for me to write for you to review. But basically, this is how you behave, how you start a meeting. Training on how to conduct events. So if like on our annual training, so if you are accused, these are the things that you will need to present to the board to show and that sort of thing. So I need to do that. Strict. Control, need to come up with rules and regulations so that there's somebody in the room who has the control, whether it be a bailiff or your legal advisor or somebody who's got the room under control. and has the present staff feel like they have it under control, the authority. We don't want a really small, timid person who's afraid of their shadow. You want somebody who is got the presence, can own the room, such as a judge. We want to keep the testimony relevant. That goes back to having that person say, whether it be the chair or the moderator saying, okay, this isn't relevant, move on. Kind of like the mayor does, this isn't the item on the agenda. I need you to focus this or have a seat.
Now, Robin had told us when we mentioned that you can't tell them what they can and can't say in the public comment part. That they can say anything they want, and told us a story, remember, about the lady that would get up at every meeting and talk about the state buying everybody life preservers and stuff.
Okay, so that is, I'm gonna disagree with her.
Okay,
Because on our public comments, we state at everyone that, comments or discussion by, it will be on, it says it on here that it has to be. Should be related to items on the agenda. Okay, well, it should be, I don't know why it didn't say that. Okay, so our policy has always been that it must be an item on the agenda.
Oh, it says with regards to matters on the agenda, under option 2. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am, it should be under all options. I need to, Jeff, can you make a note of that? Help me remember.
Needs to be stronger than that.
yeah,
But this is how we would not allow the person who comes up and talks about life preservers. We had it in the past where people come up and the mayor said, that's not an item, please sit down.
yeah, that's what we needed.
And so that is on your agenda. So we will make sure that's in the script that, you know, we don't care what color the flag and the flagpole is painted. That's not the topic here today. The topic here today is this.
Keep to the point.
Okay, so keep testimony relevant.
We would have finished in a day if it would.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, in one of these cases that did go on and on and on, the public comment was that took up so much time, people who were invited by the defendant.
Right.
I don't think that the defendant at that point say this is dragging on and on and on and going hours and hours and
Right.
hours. It shouldn't be that way. You asked 15 people who each have 3 minutes to come in and speak. Can't complain that it took an hour longer than it should have.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have some language about the general hearing process. And that brief opening statements. Chair may, if necessary, continue the hearing to another meeting to allow sufficient time, so long as the requested witnesses. Evidence related to the allegation is not repetitive of the evidence already presented.
Yeah, and
So
it's
we
repetitive
could
or-
move up that information so that it doesn't say
Is
that they continue.
there.
Yes.
So what it says is, if an item on a meeting agenda provides for public hearing, the person wishing to make comments on that item will speak at the time of the public hearing. So it's
So-
not that item.
There is a possibility that if the only item on your agenda and it's not minutes, because we have to allow the public comment if they want to talk about minutes, but if there is no action item other than the public hearing, then the public comment will not be there. They will have to swear in. It may be something that you want to consider that adopting is a time limit. You know, any witness other than the defendant or the complainant is limited to 5 minutes.
Wouldn't
And
they
only the
give you
person-
3 minutes?
Yes, they were
At
limited.
city council, I don't know if 3 minutes would be
No, they
appropriate.
were limiting.
They were
the public
limited to 3
comment.
minutes.
Under public comment, yes, that is what that is limited to, is 3 minutes, but if you do it under the public hearing and not there. This board can make a determination as, you know, you can call as many witnesses as you want, but they each have 5 minutes. And once it becomes repetitive, you know, it's like when we have public hearings at city council, if you're the 50th person to come forward and say, I don't like this item. Mayor goes, is there anybody who has new information that you would like to share this evening? Because it's 11 o'clock, we're starving to death.
Yeah,
And that sort of thing. So there is some opportunity to have a chair in control saying, is there any other witnesses that have new information that is not repetitive? They don't need 15 character
That would be
witnesses to
good,
say,
yeah.
this is a nice person, their brownies are the best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is the possibility.
But I
Okay.
also think, because it was the first time we did this, I think we were unaware of what our ability to control the room was, and cognizant of not wanting to do or say something that detracted from their ability to defend themselves. But now that we know, we can say, hey,
And I think also on the time for the public comment, put on there, the whoever will establish the time limit for public comment, because different cases, and you may need a little bit longer time for some, shorter for others.
Yeah,
And not just say 5 minutes, but
So should that be part of your arraignment process, that first meeting where it's a go, no go, where you say, okay, this is the evidence I need. Based on the complexity of this case, we think that the witnesses should be limited to,
right.
okay?
I think 5 minutes is great. 3 minutes is fantastic for us. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's enough time to
flashcard.
make a point, to make their point. I think it's gotta be 5 minutes. I think that's what P and Z does, and that's what council does.
3 minutes, But if you do have- even at public hearings, but they can ask for an extension of time. So going back through this and then keep interrupting me, definition of relevant evidence testimony and kind of like what kind, like about a box as to what information you should request, which is why as you go through these, I said, what information do you need? So like bid processes. So I will go through the code and say, okay, conflict of interest, these are the type of things. And when you go through the newspaper articles that you have asked for, when you have a gift of gifts, these are the kind of comments you said, this would be information. So you have a cheat sheet and you go, okay, well, and that'll kind of prompt a conversation, but it'll give you a basic outline to start with as to, this is the kind of nature of things that we think would help us answer this question. A brief. Oh, the board needs a briefing between the two hearings. This is your procedures. This is kind of how it goes. An outline deadline to submit the evidence. So that's must be by 5 p.m. the night before. It must be provided on this format, so it can be reviewed by IT, can be loaded up and that sort of thing. Training on the procedures, mock case twice a year. Social.
On the evidence that they're submitting.
Hmm?
Should there be a review of that to make sure it pertains to the case? Or just whatever they send in?
I would not recommend that the city staff be a gatekeeper for that sort of thing. The
Agreed.
purpose of having an independent board
Yeah.
is for a group of the peers to be the jury for you all to make that determination. I would hate for a city staff member to say that's not relevant and it could have been something that was pivotal to your decision. So I would caution against that.
Yeah.
Does anybody have problems with name cards during the hearings?
For us?
Yeah.
No,
We have them in all other meetings when you sit up there. Okay. Name records,
they knew your name, they knew my name.
Mhm.
okay? Social media training for all boards. Recommended revisions to the code, and that will be the task force. Technology usage during meetings. I think I answered that question that they can do that as long as it's not disruptive.
Just the notice on the screen.
Silence
Like,
all telephones.
no recording devices. When we came in on the screen, there was a slide,
I think it says silence all electronic
that was
devices.
it, that came up too. It was,
No recording device?
I've seen it at city council too.
I need to check into that.
Okay.
Because they're legally allowed to do that. And they do, and location change will put you in the city council chamber so that you do have that physical distance. It's a more formal setting. You don't have people sitting behind you. They have to go up to the dais to speak. And it's more of a courtroom setting. So hopefully the decor will behave better. And it'll just by being in a more formal setting, it will start to feel more formal. People behave better. Can't promise anything, but just having that distance can probably give you some more confidence.
Yeah, that was a crowded room. Everybody was entitled.
It was.
Okay, and then a time limit for witnesses, as you will determine at the first hearing, approximately 5 minutes, but you can give or take depending on the complexity of the case. That we will not put the minutes on your agenda, so there will not be a public comment. So everybody will be sworn in when they testify under a public hearing. So the only reason why you have the public comment portion is because you have minutes. So if they testify there, they're not under oath. But this way they're under oath, you find out later something goofy happens, you have additional remedies there. And name cards. What else?
That's when we ask for catering.
Wait, this is not a union negotiation, Andrew. This is hearing procedures.
We go Coke products or Pepsi products?
So Meredith, you mentioned having something that will prompt us, like a checklist that helps with preparation and so forth. Would a similar checklist be created for the complainant and the one who a complaint is filed against? Just going back, we realized after the fact that there was some missing details from the complainant to show evidence of what he was complaining about. So just to ensure that that is well covered on the front end will allow us to make a better decision on when it comes to deciding whether or not to investigate, if in fact everything was there.
Yes, ma'am. So at this point, we have come up with a draft online form where it's a fill in the blank type situation where the boxes like the name of the person filing the complaint, the name of the person alleged to violate the code, and a summary. But because it has to be notarized, it has to be printed off. What, aside from the actual minimums of the code that I have to look through, date, time, violation, what other information would be useful to have on that form to help it as you do your arraignment, no-go type meeting?
So
Can we-
as opposed to just like the social media post, because we couldn't access, I guess the actual video wasn't part of the evidence. Like I had to search to figure out. Like,
No, it was attached to the agenda item as a MP file, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Okay, we need to make that more clear. We
Okay.
did have it attached to the agenda item. I apologize.
no, there was something missing that made me feel like there
Sure.
was more to be captured. So you probably had it there. My memory is failing me.
We
but-
didn't have any comments. We did not republish any comments that might have been made. Would that have
Oh.
been helpful information?
Yeah, so just being,
Okay.
not posting the video, I mean, posting the video is one thing, but for the complainant to actually describe in his view, what was the evidence that made this questionable? I think that extra piece of information would have been useful.
And what about how you became aware? Would that be helpful? How you became aware of this?
Okay, we can add a box. How was this brought to your attention?
And
Okay.
did, yeah, I guess just going back to a little bit more narrative to describe why the complaint is being filed.
Yes,
so I
you
think
want
to
expanded
encourage a little bit
narrative.
more text.
And on your checklist too, for making sure everything's been included,
Yes, ma'am.
probably put the section code and why exactly each of those items is being requested, just put the subsection.
If to show the code,
Yeah, and so that way
Right.
they know, why are you asking for this? So for the complainant, they understand, okay, they're asking for this because it goes back to this particular code piece. And then it just is I don't know, it just is a way to show that we're not just asking for arbitrary stuff.
Okay. This is very helpful. What else? Now you've been very quiet up until now.
Oh, that was it.
Okay. This is very helpful to me. Please keep going.
so they can file the complaint online.
But you'll still have to print it off to get it notarized and bring it in.
But if so anything is missing, date, signature, paragraph, and the alleged violation of that, if all of those aren't filled in, then the box will gray out and you can't submit it, right?
Well, it has to be printed off because you have to get it notarized.
Right. But so that, until somebody complies with every one of the requirements, they don't have, like the submit button won't show up. Or
Well,
they
there
can't
won't,
print it until every one of these things. And that way we don't show up for a hearing and go, oh,
Like forced to answer, like you can't. Like you can't go to
Like
the next
an
question.
asterisk
Like,
next to everything.
Forced answer.
So like when you fill out a form, it's got the red asterisk required
Right.
box.
and if
Okay,
any of those are not met, your form will be accepted, printed, like you, all the stuff that you have to comply with in order for us to get the case and say go, no go. If it's not presented, you can't file the
Oh, I
you
see
can't
what
file,
you're saying.
right, so
so that's.
we don't
actually-
show up and go, oh yeah, absolutely, it's worth investigating, but you know what, the date wasn't put on here, so we can't investigate it.
Okay, so that's actually the preliminary review and that's my job
Okay.
when I make the report. I think you had one review that came twice. First time, it wasn't sufficient because it was missing a certain item. Then it came back again because it had that certain item.
Right, and so
So
it
we
would
would,
make your job easier and ours also, like, if you haven't filled out every one of these pieces of required information. Then it's not gonna go beyond that screen.
So, you know, we're the ethics. We should be knowing this procedure. And either we can do it ourselves, or we can spend 10 minutes for one of our meetings going through the procedure of filing an ethics complaint.
I didn't think about the fact that we've never actually trained you on how to file a complaint. Okay,
It would
that's,
save our time,
You know,
not having meetings, if we're just gonna sit down and go. That's missing. So we're walking out of the room.
Well, we're not meeting because by that time Meredith is already determined, right?
well, I can dismiss it, but I'm gonna tell you that unless, I'm fully gonna disclose that unless there's something that's like a person that's not subject to the code or the behavior is not subject to the code, I'm gonna send it to this board. And I'm gonna say it doesn't meet the criteria, so it should be dismissed. But this is the citizen board and it's my personal and professional belief is that this determination needs to be made by you and not a staff member.
Right.
As an employee, I don't think it's my place to be sat in that judgment. I think that you as peers need to be the ones making that call, but maybe I get it wrong. But, and maybe you do need to go forward, I say dismiss it because it's missing this, but you guys go, wow, this is so horrendous. Just because that's not there, maybe we should still look at it. And so that's really the point of this board, is for the citizens to be in the charge and running it, not for a staff member to be a gatekeeper.
Right.
So I
No, I
appreciate
was
the confidence, but
No, I guess my
never
concern
gonna
was,
dismiss it without sending it to you.
going back to his point of like, this is the required information wasn't on the form.
Yes.
You know, I mean, is that,
On something like that, if those come forward and we do have to call a meeting and it's something that it's a real clean cut, this is missing, we're gonna throw minutes on there and we're gonna throw a couple of articles on there, and that will be your quarterly meeting. We will make it a real meeting for you. We're not gonna have you come in for 5 minutes. So we may play with the calendar a little bit, and you may move up a quarterly meeting or move it back, but if this comes up, it will be a real meeting. I'm very cognizant of your time. But I am not going to be dismissing anything unless it's not subject to the code or the behavior is not subject. I really strongly believe it's this board's responsibility and not mine. Soapbox off. What else do you have for me?
So we're gonna go over the procedures or no? You're gonna train us on procedures? You don't think it's necessary because you're making the judgment?
On the procedures on how to file a complaint? Okay, that's not an item on the agenda, but let me get this form pulled together. And so at your next meeting, I will show you the form, we'll walk through how you file it. I will walk through the revised hearing procedures itself and our proposed revisions based on today's meeting. But until I have that form completed, I can tell you what the code says, what you have to do, but I think the form is gonna make it much easier. And then you can say, add this to the form, take this from the form and do that.
Yeah, because it seems like both complainants slipped up on completed form.
They did. And they both tried to submit it to me.
And I read it, it seems pretty simple if you read, but it'd still be nice to go over step by step. Maybe we have some
If it's
suggestions.
required, like, make sure you're giving us everything we need in order for it to proceed forward. And then you can hit the submit button, you can hit the print button, you do whatever you need to do. But that all of the basic information that's required in the document has to be on the form before it goes even to you.
Okay, so let me work with the city secretary's office. We already have a draft form that Natalie and I have been working on. So let me do that, make the changes that we've discussed today about what should be on that form. Let me come up with more of a script and more of a formal procedures to replace your resolution 2252 on the procedure, and I'll bring that back to you at the next meeting. So in that meeting, we probably will not have any article to discuss, just because these are both pretty big, pretty heavy items.
Requiring all that information to be there also will result eventually in stuff not being thrown out on a technicality. Like,
Fair enough.
the cop had the wrong last digit of my address, gets the ticket thrown out.
No name, no middle name is not someone's middle name. Leave the blank box empty, please. We'd have to dismiss it if we
Right,
no
so
middle
that-
name.
And we could have gotten a case where it's like, that's missing, they totally should be in trouble for what they did, but
Well, and you as a board have an opportunity to say, although this item is missing because I brought it forward, although I recommend dismissal, you can say based on the allegations, we are still gonna move forward.
okay.
But it just goes back to my discomfort of being the one that says, no, but I didn't get to you.
Now, I don't know how you could prevent this, but keeping the term favoritism out of this one. You know, because I think one party was accused the other of the city favoritizing one party. So again, I don't know how you can word that in one form, maybe you can. But,
Okay,
you know, when you're filing a complaint against the city,
Mhm.
and it's pretty intimidating against itself, so you've got everybody here versus me.
I will, I don't know how to take favoritism out. I will let you know that there have been multiple allegations sent to me over the years that never made it to this board because either the person wasn't subject to the code or I would respond back, thank you very much. If you want to file this, it needs to go to the city secretary's office. I get a scathing response back and it doesn't go anywhere. So, although the mayor sent it to me, I did respond back to the mayor saying, this needs to be filed, it's missing. I have done that same response to other people. It's gonna be hard to get away from the idea of favoritism. Just because the fact that if you are an elected official, you have access to the people that will notarize it for you. And you have more comfort in the whole process as opposed to a citizen who feels like you're going into someone else's house. I don't know how to take the favoritism out. Let me look at other cities and see if there's any. Let me look into that. I don't really know how to do that.
I don't know how you do it either, but, you know, keep in mind, there's very little trust in government. these
Oh,
days.
I work for government, I understand.
So, you know,
I completely
if the
understand.
form could be reformulated to take that out again, probably not, but.
And maybe that's something that, like, you know, when we're reading the rules of decorum in the room, also have something in there, so. You know, just reminding you that this is a panel group of your peers. They're also citizens. We don't work for the city. We don't work for the.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that, we're talking about the
Yeah.
process. Making sure the process doesn't favorize one party over the other, because of the position of the accused or
Yeah.
defendant. And again, if we're redoing this form, it's an impossible thing to do to keep favoritism out of it, but maybe we can take the edge off or something.
Yeah, my goal with it is really that if you meet the blanks, it comes to you all. And I either say, yes, the blanks are full, no, the blanks aren't full. Their goal really is to limit whatever gatekeeping the staff can do. Let me see what kind of language I can. And it may even be where it includes some sort of a link where you can go to the code itself and select from the code what the violation may be. So the person doesn't even have to go look for the code.
Yeah. that's
And so
yeah.
maybe just that additional step of giving them access on that form without having to do multiple clicks or even knowing where to make those multiple clicks are, that they can then find which code section. And that may assist as far as taking a small step towards that.
So then, I think a little bit to the point there was, you know, the notary, if somebody comes in and wants to file a complaint and they're coming in to submit it to the city secretary, which is the final step.
Yes, ma'am.
Do they have available to them a notary within the city that would, you know, I want to submit this, but I don't have access to notary without going down the street and having to pay somebody? Is that available?
Everybody in the city secretary's office is a notary,
So they do have that option.
and the receptionist is a notary.
So a private citizen could come in and have that form
Yes.
notarized by the city.
This form, yes, there are some occasions we charge. On this sort of, there would not be a charge.
Yeah.
And so that could probably be in instructions too, that,
Okay,
you know, that.
Right, just so that everybody
You can
knows.
bring
they've
this
got-
form down and,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
and there's.
Because some people
Are available.
charge for it and that, you know, I don't want somebody to be limited because of that.
But you know, what, back to your favoritism, maybe the thing is, knowing that people know you in city council, you know, or whatever. They know they can call you or email you and just, even saying, if you have a question, here's the city attorney, you know, so that. They can call you, I don't want that, but I'm just saying is that's, I think maybe one of the issue is. People can reach out to you because they know you.
well, the code says that if you reach out to me, I can give you a legal opinion,
Mhm.
but I can only give that legal opinion to my client, which is the boards and commissions.
Okay.
So a citizen can't call me and say, is this a violation? I have to tell them, thank you very much, pursuant to section such and such of the code of ethics, copy and paste. And if you have a complaint, this is the process to go through it, which is why I don't sit in this room if you do have a complaint, because it should not be somebody who has already had that opinion, because it looks like I'm gonna sway you because I already give you advice here. But I can't give legal advice to somebody who's not my client.
You just, I guess you just, let's make the process less intimidating. Because there's people that probably may have legitimate ethics complaints, and then you go through the website with the processes and it's not worth it.
Okay, so-
And let's move on.
We do have the ability to file a complaint with against a police officer. That's go to click this page, do this, then just hand it off here. Let me look and see how we can mirror that and get as close to handoff as possible. I can't get away from the notary requirement because we do have a perjury. And we don't want just people randomly submitting stuff, wasting your time if they don't believe what they're submitting is the truth.
Yeah, no, but that's why I think it's something on the form saying, hey, the city will
Yeah,
notarize.
for free,
Free of
for
charge.
free of charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we can't do anonymous though. I think that if we.
No,
did
I think
anonymous-
it's great.
No,
think it's a
but
great-
I think that that would take away some of the intimidation out if you could do it anonymous. But I'm just concerned that we can't prove that the person's telling the
I
truth.
don't think we're
That's
talking
exactly-
anonymous.
You're not, I'm going past the line, just trying to think of.
I was on the task force that recommended that change for the police department. So it had been that if I filed a complaint against a police officer, I didn't have to have a sworn affidavit. But that the police officer's response had to be a sworn affidavit. And so it was an unequal penalty that I could go lie all I want about the cop doing something and have no downside to it. But that if the cop said one statement wrong, well, now you're going to court for it. So we wanted it to be equal. Internal Affairs said our problem is that some people truly they don't want to disclose who they are because they're scared. And so they said that they will still investigate something that's anonymous, but they'll require a lot more evidence before they make a formal investigation. Than just the cop was rude to me.
Everybody who gets a ticket.
Right.
But I would think that going back and just putting in the code as a quick link on the form, I do think that would be helpful.
Okay. What
It
else?
gave me a drop down, so. What part of the code did you violate? And they click on it and they can scroll down to whatever thing. And then there's an A, B, C, D or whatever section it is, make it real simple for them.
You poor IT person.
Huh?
The IT
That's what they
person.
live for. Right, and that's right, okay,
I'll
there,
let Jeff submit
you're
that.
saying, you know, section 3. Paragraph C, boom, it populates it.
Well, that gets to be a pretty long drop down and you'll lose people for the same reason.
let's go to the IT and maybe they can go where it just populates like, conflict of interest, but not the things below unless you click on it.
Okay.
Or
there you
gifts,
go,
and
yeah.
then you have like just the headers, section
Okay,
names,
yeah.
and then they can go underneath it.
And then
and
always an
perhaps-
other. I think it would be good to have another, just because if they're not certain what particular code, I think it's in this area, but I'm kind of uncertain, but I'm sure it's a violation somewhere. And they struggle. But I do know we have to put in something.
A
that says
narrative,
which,
yeah.
yeah.
We'll go with IT and see how close we can get to that goal. And make it as user friendly as we absolutely possibly can. What else can I do? What other revisions would you like to see? Yes, ma'am.
Meredith, just real quick, how much time are we allowing the person for whom the complaint is filed against for them to present the evidence before the hearing is scheduled? Or before the hearing is actually going to take place?
I don't know, I understand your question. To gather the information or to present the information?
To prepare the information or to send the information to the city in order for the board to have time to review it?
You say 2 weeks?
We don't require them to send it to us ahead of time unless it's on electronic format, and our IT needs to check to make sure that it's compatible with our system and doesn't introduce a virus or some other magic IT words. But we don't require them to submit it to us if it's a paper form ahead of time. This is a hearing, so it's basically in a courtroom. We're not submitting everything attached to the agenda. We're going to require them to present it in front of you under oath. Well, we don't provide them the information you have well, actually, I think the information you request, we do attach. So
Yeah, I just remember-
one-sided.
There
Yes,
just
ma'am.
seemed to be a point during the hearing where information that we didn't have in front of us had been provided to someone at the city, but it just wasn't in our packet.
I need to look into that. Everything should have been in your packet.
I think the video, I think she took PowerPoint copies of the video. It's not it, that she.
There was some.
Yeah, I think she didn't send it in time. That was the.
Okay, so
whatever
if
the-
it's electronic, we have to have it typically, but I don't know, Jeff, how many hours it is, but we have to have it in sufficient time before so the IT can run a program on it so that we don't introduce something to the computer systems and crash it. And so I suppose if she had her own laptop, if she could somehow get the screen large enough, she could show it. We just would not be able to record it.
I think she was talking about, she had emailed it to the city, but I guess they still have to scan it before they can download it to attach it to email to us, correct?
Yeah,
You're getting outside my knowledge realm, but I can certainly ask
think
somebody
that's
who
what-
knows.
I think she's saying that she sent some stuff that never got sent. to
There
us.
was this, yes, so she did send, without getting too much into the facts of the case, just looking on a timeline. We did receive a response from the individual who had a complaint. Natalie's watching our meeting and telling me the answer. Let me tell you what the city secretary says. Okay. So Natalie says that the document was the complaint, the accused response. And she wanted to have it presented to the board prior to your first hearing, your show cause hearing. And it was explained to her that she could submit it after the board votes on it. So after you all made that first vote, I believe a copy was handed and that was provided in your package.
Yeah.
But we were not going to provide it to you because the code did say that the response could be submitted once the board makes a determination, because that first hearing is a go or no go, and there's not an opportunity for any. Okay, Natalie. I'm trying here. It's the board's opportunity to base just on the facts and not based on evidence that either party submits.
Okay.
So that was the information that she said was submitted. It was not provided to you because it was not provided before the first hearing, but you did get that response. It should have been attached to the packet that was sent to you for the hearing. But that's why you didn't get it when you got it, because that's the code provided the timelines for it. And there's no point in having someone go through the trouble of making a response if the board says no.
Right.
There's no reason we should have this hearing. You didn't violate anything. Go home and have a great day, go eat pizza or whatever you want to do and not go through the time to make the response. But as far as electronic, we do have a process, and I will include that on the, outline deadline to submit the evidence and basically, a training on how to conduct the defense. So we have the hearing process. If you're accused, what happens next? This happens, this happens, this happens. Kind of like we do for, you've got a speeding ticket. This is what you do. You take defensive advice. We'll try to make it, respectful, but simplified so that it's not, you're reading a lawyer's dissertation. So we will try to put that right there once you get the complaint form. And one thing we might do is when we send them notice of the form, a complaint has been received, we can attach it to that as well. So they have it in one place. So this is very helpful. You've got another, oh, hey, you've got 16 more minutes. What else can I do for you?
I have a feeling this might take an iteration or two, because once we start doing some of these practice things, that there might be some
Absolutely.
additional things that trigger that we'll realize we want.
I fully expect that, so I changed, you said once a year for a mock case, I changed it to twice a year.
Yeah.
So that the middle meeting can be a after action, what do I need to fix, and then bring it back for the next one.
You just need a smooth,
Yes.
It's never gonna be perfect because every case is different, but I wanna make it better for you.
But I mean, we are volunteers, and this isn't our day job, right?
Right.
And so it will take a little.
And we will certainly emphasize that you are their neighbors, let's be respectful, no personal attacks. And we will definitely
And just because
emphasize
we
that.
agree to an investigation doesn't mean we can't leave a verdict, because that came out loud, and that a verdict is already reached, and.
Yeah, but there's a lot of assumptions.
Okay, then when we draft the script, we will have, I move that we move this forward. I move that there's sufficient evidence that this should be investigated further. However, this is not a determination of the facts. And so we can put something like that in the script.
And train the people that are covered by the code. I know you've heard that.
I try.
I know you do.
And at the beginning of the hearing, the chair can just make a statement. Welcome, this is what we're gonna do, this is who we are. Your peers, and again, put everybody at ease that we're not EGB investigating you and we're gonna find something.
Yeah, typically you want the jury to like.
Right. Yeah. No, we haven't discussed this, we don't, all we know is, these are the rules, this is what was said to us, we're all gonna sit in this room and decide the outcome of it, and it's not us against you or you against them.
Yeah, that's the other reason these mock practice sessions, we were all kind of on eggshells. And there as far as what we were able to say and what we were not. able to
Yeah,
say.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to go through.
I'll go back to it as many times as for who we are and what our practice and skill level is. Y'all did an amazing job. There's not professional juries and we didn't have, lawyers and judges and bailiffs and all that stuff to guide us. We were
Okay,
all on that submarine together.
kind of like driving. You practice and practice and practice, you take your driver's test, but every day you get on the road, there's gonna be something different. You just try to get as best you can and routine as you can. All right, well, I think you've given me plenty
Okay.
of work to do. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer. We'll see you in the fall. I will come up with Natalie's instruction. I will come up with a mock hearing procedure and a copy of the form for your review. And we will have a laptop in here set up so that we can walk through filling out the form. And we can submit a form or print a form. And we can say, yes, this works, no, this doesn't work, what changes should be made? Is this user friendly? Is it not user friendly? This word is not nice, can you use this word instead? All right,
Anyone else have anything you want to add? Want suggestions? Feel your own shrimp, anything?
We're good.
All right, can I get a motion that we adjourn this meeting?
I will make a motion.
I'll second.
Second, great. at 28 minutes past the hour of 5 on Wednesday, July 18th, 2023. Meeting is hereby adjourned.
Thank you all.
And again, great job.
Thank you, Raquel.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
If